There are a lot of different voice AI platforms out there, and choosing the right one is crucial for building with this technology. In today's video, I'm going to rank 7 of the most popular ones so that you know which one to choose for yourself. I've tested each platform pretty thoroughly, from latency to user interface and functionalities. Whether you're a business owner or a developer, by the end of this video, you'll know which one to choose for yourself. Oh, and also, I never really asked this, but if you're watching this channel and you're not subscribed, a subscription helps out a lot. Okay, so we'll start off with Synthflow. Now, the first thing I noticed about Synthflow was that it has a very nice user interface, which is always a plus as it allows you to build on this interface using no code, which makes building these systems and agents a lot less technical. Also, something that is unique to Synthflow is that you are able to white label this solution, which if you're selling these agents and voice AI systems to clients is a very big benefit, as you can actually show them what you're doing on the platform and just white label it under your name, and allows them to grasp what you're doing by looking at the platform itself. Now, something I didn't like about Synthflow when I was testing it is that it has no choice of voice providers, which when I'm building with these platforms is usually quite a good indicator of how the voice is going to be like. So for example, 11 Labs is higher cost and higher latency, but is that top tier of quality when it comes to the voices. And something like Rhyme is a little cheaper, a little quicker, but it has that lower quality. So that makes it a little bit more difficult when it comes to choosing the right voice. Synthflow also has an extensive API and documentation, so that allows it to be integrated very well all over the web and allows you to build pretty complex systems on top of it. So for Synthflow, I'm going to put it in A tier. Next is Bland.AI, which the first thing I'm going to say is it does have a worse UI definitely than Synthflow. It is a bit more clunky and just has a lot of things there, which makes it a little bit more difficult to navigate around the application itself. Something I noticed as soon as I started testing Bland.AI is that to integrate your own Twilio account, it is $299 a month, which, you know, isn't cheap at all. And therefore, if you're looking for phone numbers, but a bit cheaper, you can only buy US or Canada numbers on their platform itself, which is actually really annoying for me because I'm from the UK and I'm not able to purchase UK numbers on their platform unless I want to spend $299 a month, which obviously I'm not going to do because there are other platforms that don't have this integration fee. So that is something I noticed and was quite shocked about, to be honest. Bland.AI was actually one of the first voice AI platforms out there, and because of that, it's integrated into a lot of different platforms out there. So I know platforms like Vector Shift, Zapier, Make, all these platforms have built-in applications for them and integrations, which is quite useful, but realistically that's not that big of a plus because all the other platforms I'm talking about have a decently extensive API and documentation, which basically means that you can just integrate the platforms and the voice AI like APIs yourself. So it's not that big of a deal. Now, it also just has less voices on the platform itself. You're again not able to choose the voice provider like Synthflow, which I don't like because I think the more voices you have choice wise is so much better and it kind of just gives you less freedom overall. I do have to give props to Bland.AI as it has very good latency when it comes to the actual conversation technology, which is always a plus in my eyes, as at the end of the day, when you're building voice AI systems and agents, really the core goal is to have good flowing conversations that are beneficial for businesses, and therefore the underlying conversation tech is really important. And that's why even though the UI is a little bit worse, it has that expensive Twilio integration, I'm still gonna have to put it at a B tier. Next we have Voice OS. Now Voice OS is actually a platform I've only recently heard about, and I did some testing. Obviously I'm in this field and I'm making this video, so I went out and tested all these platforms, and something I noticed whilst testing was I actually couldn't get the voice AI to work. Like, it wasn't talking to me when I was testing it via web chat. And like I said, this is a new platform for me, so I can't speak too much about it. I'm not someone that has been using it for weeks or months, but that was a big red flag of sorts. The platform itself does seem a little bit less built out. The UI is a little bit weirder than the other platforms out there, and it just seems to be on its starting feet, so it may get better in the future. However, it does have a pretty extensive API actually, so that is quite good for if you're a developer, and because of that I would see it more geared towards developers rather than business owners like Synthflow. Like I said, it has a nice UI, so Synthflow is a lot more geared towards developers and business owners who just want to do it themselves. And overall, I'm gonna have to just put it in the C tier. Okay, next we have Vapi, which has by far the most functionality out of all these different platforms out there. You are able to create squads, which is multi-agent systems, which is amazing for voice AI callers because once you start building functionality for these callers, you quite often get very chunky prompts because you're basically trying to get this caller to do all the things that any sort of receptionist or different departments would do at once, which makes the responses latency just a little bit lower quality. But having multi-agents allows you to chunk them into different agents specializing in their own different things, which is amazing. You can also build out conversational flows, which is really useful for higher control in your conversations. You can tell it, if this happens, do this, if this happens, do that, and that allows you to have a lot more control. And you can prompt agents and choose an LLM model, which allows you to actually give some of that freedom back if you don't want to have conversational pathways either. In my opinion, it also has a very nice and intuitive UI, which makes it very easy to build with. And to be honest, it might even be my favorite UI from all these different voice AI platforms. To be honest, it probably has the most extensive API documentation out there, which makes, again, developing on it amazing. So you can develop on it very well, and you can actually build on it no code using the UI very easy as well. So that's a huge plus. However, one thing that it is lacking in a little bit is that it has a higher latency. That's probably due to all the functionality and all the customization and all the freedom that the platform has itself. But that causes the underlying conversation tech to be a little bit worse due to that higher latency. But even with that higher latency, it's just such a good platform with a good UI and a good API documentation. So overall, I'm going to have to put it in S tier. Next, we have AI, which is a platform that is built for simplicity. When I signed up to the platform instantly, I looked at it and it just seemed so simple, so easy, and it is definitely geared towards business owners and people implementing it themselves, or just any sort of developer on their team that isn't specialized in voice AI could definitely easily build a voice AI agent on the platform itself. But because of that, it has very little API documentation, so you're not actually able to build full systems out there, and it is much more designed for using it within the platform itself and not building systems on the underlying technology. That makes it a definite no for developers. A few months ago, AI was really the only platform out there doing voice AI, and it was huge at the time, but now I just do see it as a little bit outdated, and there are just other platforms that are better out there. So overall, I'm gonna have to put it in the C tier. Next, we have Retell, which in my opinion has a very nice UI. It's nothing crazy, doesn't have too much complicated stuff about it, doesn't have too much functionality, but it has just enough to get a good voice AI system on it, which is really helpful for people starting out. And you can definitely build voice AI agents or systems and deploy them on the platform itself, which is useful for business owners. And it also does have a good API documentation, so building and developing on it is pretty easy and simple too. It also has very good underlying conversation tech, like I've mentioned, with some platforms not having the best, some platforms having good ones. This platform definitely does have good conversation tech. It handles interruptions well, it has low latency, and that makes the conversations with the voice AIs built on Retell very good. Something I do have to mention about Retell is that it has less LLM model freedom. There's only OpenAI models and Claude models, which isn't that helpful because there are some use cases where voice AI, you want low latency, a little bit less thinking, like a model like Llama, which is much quicker but a little bit worse overall. So that is a bit of a negative and a con in my opinion. Like I mentioned, it has good functionality, but it is missing some of those things that Vapi has, like the squads and the conversation flow, which makes it just that little bit worse to build on top of. But overall, I'm gonna have to give an A tier because it is a very strong platform. It is currently designed to do one or two main things, which is to build voice AI agents that work for inbound or outbound, and because of that is very good for building something quick and putting it into production very quickly. Now lastly, we have Sindarin. I made a video about this platform a week ago, calling it the best new voice AI platform. It was a little bit clickbaity. Sindarin is a very, very good platform. It has one of the lowest latencies and best conversation techs out of all these platforms, which makes it incredible when it comes to the underlying technology, which like I said is very important when building on top of these platforms. However, the platform is very fresh. I'm guessing it's a small team. In fact, the documentation is so scattered that I'm literally not able to build with the API because I just don't understand what is going on. So that makes it a little bit more difficult to build on top of it. You can still deploy an agent very easily, but building full-on systems is a little bit more difficult. However, I do have to give some props to Sindarin and the founder behind Sindarin, Brian. He is very responsive to my emails. He is taking a lot of my suggestions, and that is really, really nice to see, as it gives me a good projection of where the platform will go. But like I said, it has that good conversation tech, so which makes me optimistic about the things that it is currently lacking in, like the API documentation, the functionality, things like that. So overall, I would still give it an A tier.